Dobro, da počnemo polako. Da li me čujete? Čujete me? Dobro. Dobrodošli svi kolege iz instituta, ali i predstavnici akademske zajednice, državnih organa koje ću posebno pozdraviti na ovo predstavljanje knjige. Od ovog trenutka ću govoriti na engleskom da bismo svi prisutni mogli da razumemo. So, good morning, or to be more precise, good day to everyone. Welcome to this presentation of this book that you can take whenever you want. The package is there, so feel free to take your copy. The book is entitled EU Integration and Environmental Law, and publishers are, as you know, this institute, the Institute of European Studies, and Hans Seidel Foundation. This book is the last activity within a project co-organized and led by two institutions, out of which you have one representative on my left side, Professor Biļana Čiņčurak ERCEG, who is from the Faculty of Law from Osijek, Josip Juraj Strossmayer University of Osijek. These two institutions, our institute and the Faculty of Law Osijek, launched this project already in January 2022. And I remember our first meeting with Dagmar, Dr. FIZINGER, Duњa, and myself. So this project lasts for already 2.5 years. And let's say important elements of it, some important parts were first, the study visit and guest lectures from our staff, our researchers, to the Faculty of Law of Osijek. That took place in May 2022. Then the book that has been published in Croatian, covering similar topic, but from a different angle, also co-edited by Professor Duić and myself, but in different order. She was the first co-editor. Then we had a conference in Belgrade that lasted 3 days, and in the end of September 2022, during which I think about 8 to 10 colleagues from the Faculty of Osijek joined us, and the conference was really followed by our academic community, and I tend to believe that we have left some impact. And finally, even though the preparation lasted for quite a long time, this book is the final consequence, the final result of this project. You will see the details. I will not bother you much with the details. We have 9 authors with 8 contributions from 5 different countries. I will be the last speaker today, so I will have a chance to tell more about the content and the reasons why we have chosen this topic and these authors and these countries. Now I will only thank all of you who decided to join us today. I will greet especially Mrs. Kocic from National Secretariat, Public Secretariat for Public Policies, our ex-colleague Obrenović, who is now Doctor of Political Science, who recently defended his PhD and who is also already very renewed and well-known author in this field. But also our new colleagues at the Institute, including those who are lawyers and who are covering the topics related to the EU matters and EU law. Thank you all for coming. Our idea is to finish between 11:15 and 11:30. Because we have another event today at 12, so the room has to be prepared. Feel free after we finish to ask whichever question or to just simply raise your hand and let your thoughts flow freely. I will first give the floor to the director of the Institute of European Studies to greet you all and to say a few words about our work. please.
Thank you, Uroš. Dear colleagues, dear guests, dear friends from Hans Seidel Stiftung, and dear colleagues that are with us today. I'm really happy actually that I see final result, if I can say, of the cooperation that has been lasting for 2 years already, which was very fruitful, as Uroš already has this explained. And I just want to congratulate to all the people who have worked on this from all the 3 institutions, if I can say, who have made very nice and comprehensive overview of the development within the field of the environment and ecology law in the region, of course, connected with a long-lasting project of European integration of this space. Also, just want to briefly mention that very soon we will be publishing, this is also part of our cooperation with the state institution, of the Dr. Dušan Dabović, who made very nice book about regulation within the field of the common agricultural policy. And I hope that very soon we will have this book published as well, which means that we are really continuing beside theory to deal with the very concrete practical research about the state within concrete fields of the integration and different aspects of the common European politics. And finally, I will just briefly switch to German. Angesichts dass ich werde mein Direktoratposition geendet. Ich wünsche herzliche Gedanken zu die Leute von Hans Seidel Stiftung. Das war sehr nette Kooperation und ich bin glücklich und ich hoffe, dass Kooperation mit neues Direktor Professor Zečević wird auch viel besser sein. Thank you very much for very nice cooperation, and I hope that it will be one long-lasting project even in the future, just briefly. Thank you very much.
Hvala vam, Sava. Okay, it's okay. I don't.
The floor is yours.
Yes, I didn't want to confuse you all, but in my person, I would like to welcome you all to this event of presentation of our common publication. The editors, authors, but you, the auditorium. There's some proverb that means everything is already said, but not from everybody. So let me also emphasize by my side and by the side of Hans Seidel Foundation how grateful and how glad I am that this trilateral cooperation we could do between the Institute for European Studies in Belgrade, the law faculty in Osijek, and also our both offices here in Belgrade, represented by Mrs. Konstantinovic and Mrs. Đurović, and my colleagues in the office in Zagreb. And let me also emphasize that both of our institutions, IES and also we as Hans Seidel Foundation, we of course have been supported all this year and will do also in the future cross-border cooperation with many topics. It is also not the only sector, the only project what we together conducted. We had several neighborhood topics, but one decisive factor, of course, of cross-border cooperation is also to fight against climate change and to protect our common environment. And the problem is by this that we have, as you all know, different law situation inside the EU, outside of the EU, also between different countries. And so it was the aim of us, our common aim, to elaborate some useful manual about the respective diversity on the one side of the level of EU integration according to this topic and also according to environmental law. And I must say, if I look inside the book, I see it is very various as we wished from Serbia, from Albania, outside of the EU, but from Croatia and Hungary, inside the EU, so that there's some broad spectrum about the situation. And of course, let me finalize European Union. This process is some multi-sectoral process with many facets, but environmental protection and climate change is more and more coming to some crucial event, not only according chapter negotiations of Serbia and another countries of the Western Balkans, but in generally it is some local problem, it is some regional problem, and it is really also some global problem, what we have to tackle in common way as much as possible. And I am glad if this book on the scene of scientists is some small contribution to that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fizinger. We are also glad that it happened with your support, which does not mean that this is the last project done commonly with together with the Institute, some other foreign partners, and the Hans Seidel Foundation. Now, before I give the floor to Professor Mihaylov, I will briefly mention who were the reviewers of the book. We had 3 ladies as reviewers of the book. I'm especially proud of that fact. The first one is Professor Alexandra Langlais, who is a research director at the Centre National de Recherche Scientifique in the Faculty of Law of Rennes in Western France. She is one of the, let me say, 3 most recognized French experts for environmental law. The second one is Professor Janja Hojnik, full professor at University of Maribor, who wanted to come, but let me share with you the reason why she didn't come. She wrote me, oh, 13th of June, sorry, we have sport event. Then I asked, but what kind of sport event? And you know, I am vice dean for science, and if I don't go together with my students to climb the mountain next to Maribor, I will have low respect for my students. So please excuse me, but I cannot come. So she didn't come for the the reason that is in very coherence with the title of this book. She is, as Slovenians say, zbirajmo gob. She went to collect mushrooms. So it was a nice way to say no. Professor Langlais is now in Alabama in the United States, probably barbecuing on 45 degrees, but also doing research in this field. And definitely, here is someone who knows the time zones better than me. And Professor Mihaylov, first, before I give you the floor, I have to apologize because we, in all imaginable documents, have put a letter I instead of letter G in the second, as the second I in her family name. So I'll apologize for that. But in the same time, I'm very thankful that she accepted to be a reviewer of this book, given that she's not a legal expert. I will say more about that non-legal elements in producing this book later on, but she's not a legal expert, but she's, however, the former minister of this country. She served as a Minister of Preservation of and Environment between 2002 and 2004, and now she is the UN expert in the field of environment. So, Professor Mihaylov, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for these nice introductory words. And I'm so happy to be here in the Institute for Environmental Law from few points of view. As mentioned, I'm not a legal person. I didn't conclude any of social sciences. My background is chemical engineering, and I did everything in the technical science. But after I retired from University of Novi Sad, Faculty of Technical Science, Department of Environmental Engineering for 10 plus years, now I come up with some kind of rare professional or rare consultant covering policy, environmental and climate change policy, covering environmental climate change and policy and strategies, and something in environmental governance, climate change governance. This is not only law, this is having another perspective, and I'm so grateful that I have opportunity to contribute to this nice publication. I will now come with the importance of these thematic issues. You know, I was the member of the governmental negotiation team responsible for Chapter 27. There were two of us in that group. One was the legal person and was as a technical person. And what is the point? We finished our work almost 5 years ago, and the fire about negotiation in Chapter 27, meaning environment and climate change, is almost not existing now. And I just see this publication that you are keeping fire alive. And this is something that seems that it is forgotten that we present our negotiation position. It is forgotten that we have to negotiate. It is forgotten for the both sides, from our side and from European Union side. Some more important political issues are coming, and this is something hidden, and I see this opportunity to keep fire burning, to keep fire alive. And I just congratulate you for that vision to have this. I think it's the beginning, because still it is a need to keep that fire alive, because, you know, our accession to EU will not be full without environmental and climate change regulation and our acceptance of full package of regulation. And from that point of view, I just also would like to point out something what is already mentioned. This is this kind of regional cooperation. You know that in some sectors, maybe in some sectors, like previously mentioned agriculture policy, you can have your national agriculture policy in line with European Union. But with environment and climate change do not have administrative borders. And we all work in a region in the same package. You could call that Green Deal for West Balkan, or whatever you call it, but it is not the way that, for example, Serbia could make great progress in environmental and climate change chapter, and Bosnia is far, far behind. It is the thing that we have to go somehow together, and it is like in physics, this law on the connected, connected vessel. Yeah, it will be something like that. We have to support each other in that way, and how much is progressive I work also in Montenegro, in Albania, in Macedonia, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, in Turkey on accession documents. How far we are all together progressing, it is very important. And from that point of view, I just would like to sign what you already said about this importance of regional cooperation. But that keep me something like memories from the past. You know, the other editor, Mrs. Duić from the faculty of Osijek, I remember, to say you are not, about late 70s, early 80s, when it was Yugoslavia. And I was at University of Novi Sad, and with some people with University of Osijek, we started with the chemical engineering, pointing out the importance of environmental engineering at that time. And I have a really good feeling that University of Osijek is together with Institute in this exercise, because that keep me somehow memories from the past that this cooperation was really good and continuing until today. What else? The third point of my initial talk will be the importance of coexistence of legal regulatory issues with the technical one. For example, if you are just legal expert, if you are just from that point of view, for you it is no different between waste combustion, waste incineration, or waste burning. For us, from the technical point of view, it is totally different in that. And this is consequently going back to you, because regulation is different for different parts. And this kind of, something what is very common in Serbia, and I'm so glad that this is environmental law. I hate to see ecological law. But it is coming in few circles of translation from English to Serbian, from Serbian to English, and you come to the ecological law. Ecological law is not what you are doing, because ecology is another science in the umbrella of biology. And this is something that this clear language, clear definitions are really needed. But it is vice versa. For me, as a technical expert, I don't have a feeling about a different level of regulation. I have some kind of picture, but not have a really feeling what is more important, what is less important in this hierarchy. But this is what you have to tell us. That means that this kind of exercise to merge expertise from regulatory field, legal field with other fields is very important for the future, because it could be a lot of misunderstanding without that, and it possibly will make things more difficult to address. One issue what is very common here with people not from environmental and climate change field is not to distinguish polluters and pollutants, not to distinguish mitigation and adaptation to climate change, but this is something that could mislead you on regulatory framework if you put that in one baggage. And from that point of view, I'm so happy that Institute recognized that this some kind of value to ask me to be one of these reviewers, and I was very happy to contribute to this book. And to the end, I just would like that it is really good solid ground to continue in this exercise, because somebody have to keep this fire. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mihaylov, and especially thanks to for these words about the late 70s and how you established the cooperation with faculties in Osijek. Our cooperation was great, and person sitting on my left-hand side was one of the main members of the team who welcomed us, who organized various not only scientific events while we were staying in Osijek, and who is one of the valuable contributors of this book, Professor Biļana Čiņčurak ERCEG. So she will be, unfortunately, the only representative of the faculty of Osijek today, but for that very reason, she has 30 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Uroš. Okay, so much. Yeah. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I'm very pleased to be able to address you today. I greet you all in behalf of the Faculty of Law in Osijek and on my own behalf. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address you today at this public presentation of this new book. As Uroš already told you, the book is a continuation of a joint project, Environmental Legislation and Sustainable Economic Development, the State of Play in Serbia and Experiences of Croatian EU Membership, carried out by the Institute of European Studies, the Heinz-Eidl-Stiftung, and the Faculty of Law from Osijek. As a result of this cooperation, we have today two books. First, the Environmental Protection Legislation and Sustainable Economic Development in the EU, published in 2022 in Osijek. And today, the second one, EU Integration and the Environmental Law. As we all know, pollution of the environment and nature endangered plant and animal species, the reduction of the amount of non-renewable energy sources, huge amount of waste, as well as increasingly evident climate changes are the problems of the modern age. The right to environmental protection has undoubtedly become crucial for the European Union, but also for all other countries. The effects of climate change are already being felt around the world and are predicted to become even more frequent and intense in the coming decades. The European Union is determined to implement the green transition and in this sense wants to become climate neutral by 2050. However, the European goals were set quite ambitiously and the deadlines for their realization are quite short. So achieving European environmental goals requires the engagement of all interested stakeholders as well as all citizens. Achieving climate neutrality also requires radical changes in the economy and law and society as a whole. When we talk about legislation related to environmental protection, we can say that its adoption started relatively late, around 1970s. However, today we have several hundred directives, regulations, and decisions in the field of environmental protection. The Union's environmental policy contributes to preserving, protection, and improving the quality of the environment, protecting people's health, rational use of natural sources, as well as promoting measures at the international level to solve environmental problems. However, the effectiveness of the EU environmental policy largely depends on its implementation at national, regional, and local levels, and inadequate implementation and enforcement still remains a significant problem. So legal regulation related to reduction of environmental pollution in general is intensively adopted from one side, but also amended over the past few years. Such a large number of different documents that are constantly amended and changed is difficult to follow. But from the other side, it is necessary to ensure the appropriate legal framework. Although it seems that everyone deals with environmental issues and environmental protection and analyzes and write about it, from my perspective of view, this is not the case. Especially when we talk about scientists who are dealing with law and environmental law from that legal perspective. From dealing with the topic of environmental protection, so far I could say that it is very often that it is not perceived as a legal issue, which has absolutely no basis. So in this sense, this book in front of us should be especially appreciated. As I can see from the content of this book, it covers important environmental topics, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, regulatory framework dedicated to the fight against greenwashing, a legal framework for single-use plastic, for maritime protection, for waste and waste management, as well as the Serbian experiences in the preparation of a negotiation position and legal environment protection in Albania. All these interesting topics by authors from different countries and with different background make a significant scientific contribution to environmental law and protection of the environment. Environmental protection is not only the task of the European Union. However, the EU is emerging as a leader here, especially in the regional framework. We hope that the path and experiences of the member states will be useful to the candidate countries. All of us have a great responsibility and a lot of work in achieving EU environmental goals and protecting the environment. As one of the authors of the chapter in this book, I'm extremely glad that this book has finally seen the light of the day. So I especially thank to the editors of the book, Professor Duњa Duić and Dr. Uroš. And this collaboration and work on the new book was an opportunity to meet new people, exchange experiences and ideas, and we hope to continue this cooperation. Once again, I thank the Institute of European Studies, the Heinz Seidel Stiftung, and you, dear Uroš, without whose persistence and dedication this book would not exist. Thank you all.
Thank you, Biljana. However, haven't overheard that gentle critique that you addressed by saying finally, and I agree, it really is finally because we waited a number of authors. So I will give, as I already did, the floor to myself in order to present quite briefly, in not more than 10 minutes, 3 main topics around this book. Afterwards, I hope we will have enough time, which is between 15 and 30 minutes, depending on your interest, for your comments, questions, and whatever. So first, Professor Mihaylov, thanks a lot for that mention of the difference between ecological law and environmental law. Why have we chosen, I will speak about 3 topics. Why have we chosen to treat the issue of the environment as such? Then why in the context of EU integration? And finally, why with these people including Biljana next to me, and with other authors that are coming from 5 different states. Let's attack the first issue. Ecology is, we are very right to say, totally different notion. But in the entire European, and I would say worldwide literature on it, many authors, including competent ones, like our colleague Drenowak from the Faculty of Law, he has opted for the word ecological. By the way, it is in Croatian, but Croatian is understood as language more or less in the entire region, and we could fight over the fact whether it's different or same language, but it's not important. Anyway, it's not in English, but my contribution to the book published in Croatian was exactly about it. Why we differentiate these two notions, and why environmental law is something that we should keep insisting on as a term. So much about the term. Now, why the topic of environmental law? You know, this institute is a place where very different ideas can be heard. Very often, we tend to divide those ideas into the right-wing ideas and left-wing ideas. We just have had parliamentary elections on the European level. One side of the political spectrum was very worried about the migration and, to be very precise, immigration. The other side of the political spectrum was worried about natural habitat, the future of the planet, pollution, and so on. I will let myself be very personal. I'm coming from this city, a part of the city, but my wife is coming from city of Užice, who had suffered for more than 3 weeks a terrible series of explosion and fire, not the intellectual one, Professor Mihaylov, but the real fire taking place in the just close to the city, where there is a main place for. Of course, if you're a technical, but we are technical experts. We are only stupid lawyers, so we could not predict. No, honestly, and now here I'm not joking, at least 30 kilometers around Užice, still serious analyses are being done. But you are never sure if you can pick and eat a strawberry, a mushroom, or whatever else, and you are not sure whether the milk and the cheese from the cows and other animals who have had pasture in this region would be healthy to eat, because dioxin and furan, two chemical compositions that are the consequence of the burning of that garbage, could be. Generally, as they say, they are. So we will see after those analyses, but this is the issue that really tackles everyday's life. No matter if in Europe will live African and Asian migrants, or pure European nations, white and nice, or other peoples, whoever lives in Europe will live either in a very polluted part of the world or in less polluted part of the world. So I think that we should be worried about several topics here, and this is why we have chosen environment. Because as you said, if Serbia is making progress and Bosnia is not, then the garbage will come through the river of Drina, even though we are very cooperating in the region in polluting rivers. The Drina is the proof. It's very polluted from all 3 border states, so much so that in city of Visegrad, sometimes there are hundreds of meters of garbage accumulated in this river. So this is why we have chosen this topic, because we believe it tackles our everyday lives. It will tackle your everyday life when you will be coming to this institute, you who are employed here every day in winter when the pollution is in violet, red, or depending on which application you are using. So we thought that this is something important to deal with. We have dealt with it in the only way we know, through legal, regulatory, and other aspects, mainly legal. So this is the first point that I wanted to underline. Then the second, why EU integration? As Biljana very rightfully pointed out, the EU hasn't been created to upkeep the green Europe and unpolluted Europe. The European communities have been founded for two main reasons. One is to prevent every future chance to get to the armed conflict between European nations. And the second one, connected with the first one, was to ensure the free movement of people, goods, services, and capital. That was the initial idea. But as soon as goods and people are moving, you also have the movement of products. And those products can also be food. While the free movements of clouds, rivers, and air cannot be stopped by state borders. That's why we have chosen to pick the angle of attack to this topic, that is the EU regulation. The EU can be criticized from various points. But if there is a field, regulatory field, in which the EU is undoubted international leader among all states and international organizations, then it's the field of environment and environmental protection. So much so that in some countries, national elections and European elections can be lost by the ruling political factors due to the fact that they were insisting too much on those issues, as we have seen recently. So this is the reason why we have attacked the topic from the EU integration point of view. Even though Biljana rapidly did it, I am now obliged as editor to read you the names of the authors and not the full titles, because you will be able to read them when you take the book. First chapter is written by our colleague Ristanović, who wrote about a general issue, UN Sustainable Development Goals, and how do they reflect in this part of the world, in Balkan countries. Then our colleague Attila Panović wrote about a very concrete topic, how do they treat waste management in Hungary. Osijek is treating about 49% of its waste in a way that it's separated and treated. Am I right? 49-50. Yeah. Belgrade is at 3%. Užice is at 1%. Chapter 3 is my modest contribution. I wrote about greenwashing, which is, some of you may know, when companies and other entities tend to prove you that they are greener than they really are. Like, this product is very green and so on, even though it's not green at all. This is greenwashing. Then the fourth chapter is written by Duњa Duić, who is one of the editors, and who wrote about the European Green Deal and its influence on EU energy policy. Our colleague from Belgrade, already mentioned Professor Drenovac Ivanović, wrote about Serbian experiences in the preparation of negotiation position. Now, I am especially proud of this. I spent 3 weeks in Tirana last year on a study visit to the Institute of European Studies, the very same name as this institute. And the institution is interesting because it belongs to the University of Tirana. And I was absolutely unable to find a brief, let me say brief, I mean less than 100 pages, overview of Albanian legislation in this field. Now we have it, because in this book, Professor Endira Bushati, from the Faculty of Law and the Institute of European Studies, with whom, by the way, our institute has an agreement on bilateral cooperation. She gave a very detailed overview of all legal acts in force in Albania that treat the issue of environment. Then Biljana wrote about the single-use plastic in the marine environment. Don't worry, we have single-use plastic not only in the marine environment, also in the rivers, but I can be pretty sure about it. Also in your beautiful bodies, you can find some microplastics that you are eating every day and that accumulate slowly in your body. So think about it when you're watching yourself in the mirror next time. Then finally, the 8th chapter is written by 2 colleagues from Bosnia, Emina Saračević and Hana Komić, and they are not professors of law or researchers. They are simple lawyers working in one law company that is called Saračević and Partners. Emina is one of the owners. This is a very small company, but I found them because they are good in fighting environmental cases before Bosnian courts. So they gave kind of practitioners insights on the issue of, once again, waste management. So if there is one issue that is treated 2 times in this book, then it's the issue of waste by Hungarian colleague and by our Bosnian colleague, but also by our Croatian colleague. So now I see that we have even 3 articles that tackle in one way or another the issue of the waste. So finally, I have to justify the choice. The choice of our Croatian colleagues was not only natural, but necessary, because they were our partners. We have 2 authors from Croatia. Then the choice of our 2 colleagues, Mr. Istanović and myself, was also obvious because we were participating in this project. Everything else was not obvious, and everything else was not easy. Why Bosnia? Because Bosnia is a complex state. A number of PhDs have been defended only on the topic of the status of district of Brčko, that with all my modest intelligence, I'm still unable to understand fully. It's very complex. It's the same for the field of regulation and environmental protection. District Brčko has its own rules that, as you can see when you read this book, to some extent vary from the rules of other 2 entities. So that's why we have chosen Bosnia, because the 2 ladies have given a nice overview of this. Hungary is a good example, because Hungary is now the country who is retropedaling in its process of implementation of the EU legislation with the environmental law. It's pointed out in numerous reports of the European Commission. But even though Hungarian smaller cities, when I say smaller, I mean between 100 and 300,000 inhabitants, like Pécs, Szeged, Miskolc, have made significant progress in local waste treatment issues. That's why we have picked up our Hungarian colleague. And finally, our Albanian colleague. First, it was easy. I was there for a study visit, so I asked her in person. And second of all, Albanian legal system is an interesting plant, because it was in 1990 entirely, they have adopted a law putting out of effect practically the 90% of socialist legislation. So it was a great playfield for lawyers to build up something new, and they have built up quite an interesting legal system in which, believe it or not, the Constitution of Albania mentions much more concrete issues connected to the environmental protection than a very big number of other European constitutions. Even though, of course, when you travel in Albania, you will see the pollution that exceeds even the terrible levels we were able to reach. It's bad, especially the sewage and waste treatment of used waters. It's quite bad, especially in the coastal cities of Durrës and Shkodra. But what can we say? At least the legal system is good. Let's hope that they will implement it at some point. That's why The same in Serbia. By the way, Belgrade is one of the probably the only capital of Europe which puts directly the used waters in the rivers of Sava and Danube, more Danube than Sava, than lucky us who are living next to Danube. You know, mosquitoes are big like little birds. So much so about the authors and why we have chosen them. And finally, please feel free to take the book. It will be accessible online, right, Dagmar, on the website of Hans Seidel Stiftung and on the website of the Institute. So we will make it accessible. According to the Hans Seidel Foundation policies, the copies are free. So please don't take them if you have part of your home where you should put under it. So don't use it for that, or use it for reading, or at least make it a gift to your grandma. But feel free to take a copy. We brought something like 25-30 copies here. And feel free now to enter in any kind of discussion. Feel free to give a comment or your personal perspective about whichever issue related to this. Thank you very much. I managed to stop myself exactly at 11. So.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to Uroš for this nice introduction and to I'm not sure. Okay. And I'm very thankful to all dear and distinguished speakers for this great presentation of the book. So, as Uroš said, I am Strahinja Obrenović, coming from the Faculty of Political Science, and I am mostly involved with the energy law, specifically in Europe. So my question would be regarding the Energy Charter Treaties. I haven't the opportunity to read this book yet, but I'm not sure whether this issue is covered in the book. So the position of the European Union, which started with the adoption of Energy Charter during the 19th, it was mainly concerned with the undisrupted flows of energy towards the European Union in a context of dissolution of the Soviet Union. In the aftermath, we have using of this treaty to protect investment in fossil fuel industry and most recently in the renewable energy sources industry. So we have the announcement of the EU countries to jointly leave this instrument. So what is your perspective about the EU position? Whether it's a good step to leave this instrument? Do we need a new instrument adopted to foster this energy transition process regarding the EU and the more broader context?
I could answer from environmental, energy, climate change point of view, but I cannot answer of position of EU, sorry. The point is that few years ago, the European Union changed the methodology for accession and leaving chapters, moving to the clusters. And now under that cluster 4, together are environment chapter 27 and energy chapter, I think 13, but I'm not sure. Okay, and 2 other chapters. That means that in negotiation, we are going all together. And this is first point. The second point concerning energy, Serbia is the part of Energy Community Treaty and signed with European Union obligatory instrument how we will behave. And this is not backwards. We have to do what we signed that we should do, but we are still not doing that. On the domestic scene, we have the strategy for low carbon development, pretty empty with some concrete actions. And now we are waiting at least for two very important documents. One is the most important document. This is integrated climate change and energy strategy that should be promised that it will be accommodate our obligation for European Energy Treaty and EU accession. We have in last few years, few promotions, public discussion on document, but still not coming. This is one document, and another document is some kind of strategy for environmental protection. The last one was about 15 years ago, and that should be updated. And from my point of view, you know, I just believe that European Union is the best family for environmental issues. From that point of view, I just think that we will have consequences if we go backwards, having in mind what we already promised. Not just promise, we sign it, this Energy Community Treaty. If you go that from the legal point of view, you will see that we, European Union is on the one side, Serbia is one of the other side. We sign it already. This is, you know better than me how this is going to be implemented when you have some kind of international contract between Serbia and European Union. And this is something that I think we don't have any way forward except that, or if political terms do something else.
I would also like to add something, although I'm not an expert in environmental law, but so to speak, as some representative of the European Union. I think what just my neighbor said is in some way visible. This change from chapters to clusters brought structurally also some bigger flexibility according to a gradual accession. And gradual accession means no more either black or white, but something in between. It means also that, as was just said, if there is something, some document, some treaty, some contract already written, then there is the possibility to do so. There is the possibility of sectoral, so to speak, gradual accession to the European Union. And up to now, this I must really emphasize, the Green Deal is really in some focus of the European Commission. Of course, we don't know how it will go on. Uroš told it that there is in some part is much more focused on all matters of migration. The other part of environment and climate, there was now after the European election some right shift to national parties which have no more so much environmental matters in focus. This will, as I think, as I suppose, also influence in a certain way the next European Commission. But however, I'm sure that this topic will remain in the focus, in the center, simply because we must. We see already the after effects and aftermaths of climate change, and this cannot be done national-wide. It cannot be only by collaboration of several states.
I will just very briefly mention that when you take the book, you will see chapter 4. Duњa Duić briefly wrote about energy issues too. And to give my modest contribution to the answering of your question, you know, environmental legal let's say structure of a country is politically influenced, but not heavily. But energy is a hot, very hot political and economic topic. And it is often contaminated with what is happening on the international scene. But we've seen that the Europe managed to abandon to a certain extent fossil fuels, where Serbia is much lagging behind, not in comparison with the EU, is, for example, green energy in terms of solar energy. Did you know that there is a factory of solar panels in Paraćin? Did you know that? That only waits to be functional. There is the factory is there in a very central Serbia, so easy to distribute panels. But the problem is that the solar panel produced in China, including the price of transportation, is still cheaper than the one produced in Paraćin, even though the quality is much worse. So one element to show you how complex energy policy is. So I will stop myself there to allow.
Thank you for your exposure. The environmental question is not so simple. We can say that the environmental regulation of European Union is something positive. But I can give you the examples that it's a sort of catastrophe for the society. And you have a very simple example. France was the great producer of apples. And in the supermarket in France, you can and you could buy the apples from France. But because of the European regulations, the French agricultors should tear out the apple trees. And the question now is, if you have the apples in the French supermarkets, yes, from where? From Chile, Argentina. Do you think it's a good environmental politics? You know, that is the big question. The second thing I want to maybe underline. Uroš spoke about Islamization of Europe, immigration, and then environmental questions. It's different questions. You have solved the environmental question issue, but you also have to solve the problem of the Islamization of Europe. That is also the big problem. And I don't think we must put some equality. I mean, there is different issues. European Union must be careful. As a man, as a parent, I always support environmental regulations, but it's not so simple. You have so many examples of very, very destroying effects of these regulations. Okay.
I'll just react to what Dr. Zečević said. I only spoke about immigration. I haven't mentioned Islamization as a and
sort of perception, it's a reality.
Just to sort out that the notion was immigration. And then the apples, many examples in various European supermarkets. It's exactly the same thing as I said for solar panels. Cheaper products are accessible in Europe. What happened yesterday? Yesterday, the European Commission adopted serious additional taxes for Chinese electric vehicles. You know what are the import taxes in the United States for Chinese vehicles? 100%. In the European Union, now it's going up to 30–40%. But it still makes the Chinese producer cheaper than the European producer. So if you are a partisan of a free market, as the European Union is, then state subsidies are something that are not okay. So if you have to leave the goods flow freely. And of course, the apples, you are absolutely right. And this is the consequence of the common agricultural policy. That some people say, correct me if I'm wrong, is the worst enemy of the environmental policy in many ways, agricultural policy. So you have interior conflicts within the very system of the European Union. So, and thanks for mentioning apples, because it's a good example. Of course.
You know, the people from environmental field is having the umbrella sentence, money is not the most important. If you accept that in the other fields, we could talk differently, because it is in environmental policy, it is life cycle analysis. In that life cycle analysis, your apple coming from agricultural policy will not survive coming from China or Argentina, because products locally produced will lead, but it is not implemented properly. It is now European Union legislation of green public procurement. Why the countries are not using that or implementing that? That is coming back to the Serbia. We have a lot of good legal instruments, but not implemented. The same is in European Union. And if you are thinking about some kind of further contribution from legal point of view, it is how we could find some kind of indicators of implementation of legal requirement. This is something what we are still blind. And this is the same in European Union. You have European Environmental Agency doing with some indicators. This is one picture, of course, but if you choose another indicators, you will come to another picture. This is what you, with apples, you know, this is just the issue. In each document, it is not supported like this, but when you integrate that agriculture policy and money, financial issues, it is coming to the end. For example, for Serbia and energy policy, we still, what is the main, I agree with you, it is really politic issue, because we still consider, there are scientific papers proving that for Serbia, coal will be the most sustainable for years to come, but we are obliged to cut it. It is still believing in Serbia that natural gas is environmental friendly. Not, it is transitional technology. It is also fossil fuel. And, you know, there are a lot of myths in Serbia and a lot of really limitations to do something what is prescribed by the European Union. And the knowledge is important, how to overlap that.
Let me joke a little bit concerning our European future and normative ideas about solving our environmental problems within EU, I would quote our former president Slobodan Milošević saying, let me translate it like Vuk Drašković, don't die donkey before the green grass, or ne lipči magarče do zelene trave. I'm joking a little bit because really, as it looks now, concerning the much bigger threats that we are facing at this moment, which might unfortunately include direct confrontation of the new blocks, including nuclear power. And after that, I'm sorry for saying that, but this all will probably become very irrelevant if we don't survive. I'm joking a little bit, but in the meantime, we are definitely facing a decrease of the quality of the air, river, general environment, and this is the question for everyone. Actually, I would like former minister, if she can give us some comment about the tendencies in our, not environmental law, but environmental reality. And my second question would be direct issue about the public procurement and the investment that we are having in Serbia, starting from our Chinese friends that are working down there. Do we have any, let me say, not technical or legal, but practical analysis, or let me say evaluation of the investments that are coming in Serbia from all the parts of the world, or it is in our, as we say, golden age, totally neglected, and we are in a way, you know that in many countries who are searching for investments and for any kind of jobs for people, usually it goes with massive pollution, unfortunately. So some people are saying that people at the Western Balkans are in a state when they are searching for further pollution that will bring the jobs in a way. I'm joking a little bit, but reality is not so laughable. Actually, we faced quite a lot of recent problems in Belgrade, in Bor, in many parts of Serbia. And my concrete question was Užice and so on. Do we have any real indicators about possibility really to make some public legal control of what is really being invested, and what quality of the environment or decreasing quality environment is this producing? Thank you very much.
Just my limited knowledge in that relation with what is invested in Serbia. I'm now doing some project on green labeling of Serbian budget for the next year, and whatever you dig in some big capital projects in that regard, more or less, I don't know the exact legal word for that. I call that like specialis. I don't know. This is for me, but this is not the same package for each one. But it seems that when you as a country make a deal for some investment, you maybe don't ask for environmental issues. Maybe. I don't know, because I didn't have opportunity to see that. And in that kind of situation, it is really not possible to do what you are really asking, and it will be great instrument. On the other side, this pollution now, having evidence now, probably it was the same 20 and 30 years ago, in relevant numbers, but we didn't have evidence in that time. We are much better in monitoring, we are much better in that, and we come that Belgrade is one of the most polluted, air polluted cities in the world. And we have, our government adopted very good air protection strategy, and it is not implemented. And this is the point. And we have a waste management strategy. We have a circular economy strategy. If you go there as the expert, it's just fine. The point is we are not implementing, and we don't have money in budget to implement it.
People
Maybe
don't
to
know
bring
just
people from economy and finance also, you know, that maybe they know better.
resembles very much actually what we have in public procurement. We have a situation in which I think 60 to 70% are going without respecting the law. I mean, you have fantastic legal system, framework, everything is fantastic, but then you have probably 60 to 70% that are excluded. And usually, as you know, it should be only for really security issues and so on. But now everything is security issue. So it resembles very much, as you said, it's not procurement, but direct negotiations, actually, in which we have de facto political deals and political investments and not really something that...
Just briefly contribute to answering to your question. You know, some of us are here very passionate readers of daily newspapers. If you are reading dailies like Politika or Danas, you will see those kind of publications by municipalities saying evaluation of the impacts of the project on the environment, procena uticaja na životnu sredinu. You cannot put an antenna for mobile phone system without that kind of assessment. But the problem is that the rich investors, like Rio Tinto, are buying out the entire cathedrals of the faculties, Serbian faculties, whose professors, entire institutes, whose experts then issue opinions that their project is not impacting the environment. But the problem is that the thing that they are planning in the other region in Serbia, we still don't know the way they're planning to filtrate and the way they are planning to use water, because it's quite unique next to the river. So what is going to happen? You have good experts who are saying, we don't know, it might be good, it might be bad. The problem is huge. And there is no independent state monitoring system which could also hire foreign experts if the domestic ones are bought out. So the problem is huge. To conclude, our legal, in speaking about Serbia, our legal framework is quite good, but our reality is far from being good. Anyway.
One more issue is data. I could, as engineer, I could produce you different output if you give me different data. And concerning, you know, this Rio Tinto case, I still don't have opinion, but because I didn't find anywhere data to relevant for some kind of overall opinion. The data are just coming, you just pick the data what you like to produce what you would like to produce. And these are the, together with the legal system is data system. With the data system, some people are playing games.
So, dear friends, dear guests, it's almost exactly 11:30, time to conclude. Thanks a lot. Please don't forget to take your copy. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have, via email, of course, or whichever way, if you have any kind of comments or suggestions how to continue this work. Thank you a lot.